Okay, we will now call to order the virtual meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee. I will begin by reading the land acknowledgement statements. On January 19th, 2023, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might be here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution to in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. All public participants are asked to keep microphones on mute and cameras off during staff presentations and staff and consultant presentations. There will be an opportunity for public and committee members to ask questions following the presentation this evening. We did not have any public sign-in, so I'm sure that that will not be an issue. I am Mary Remig. I am the planning clerk with the town of Smiths Falls. I will now take attendance of the committee members and staff. Please raise your hand or declare your presence when I call your name. Councillor Jay Brennan.
Present.
Josie DePietro. Jacqueline Grimes.
Present.
Stephen McGuire.
Present.
Yvonne Robert.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Robinson.
Present.
John Walness.
Present.
Senior Planner Carl Granke.
Present.
Planner 1 Richard Grant.
Present.
To review, committee members are asked to raise their hand if they wish to speak. That can be virtual or your physical hands. So moving on to the next item of the agenda, appointment of committee chair. I'll open the floor for discussion of who should be appointed. Jay?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate John Wanless as the chair. And John has served as chair in the past. Not only does he have experience, but he has run meetings efficiently and diplomatically for a great number of years. So I nominate John.
Thank you, Jay. Jacqueline?
I second that.
John, are you accepting?
Yeah, I'll accept.
Perfect. Okay. So I have Jay, who is the mover, Jacqueline, who seconded the nomination. And I will hand it over to you, John, to take over.
The next item of business, we have to appoint a vice chair. Jay?
I'd like to nominate Jacqueline Grimes as vice chair, who has served in that role before and has great experience on this committee.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Steve. All in favor? Carried. Appointment of committee secretary and treasurer. Have you looked after that in the past, Mary?
So I believe Carl has a recommendation for you.
Yeah, so the secretary treasurer, through you, Mr. Chair, the secretary treasurer role is it is a role that involves predominantly committee management in terms of circulating notifications, conducting meeting minutes, arranging. We don't have much of a budget to. We don't have much of a budget to manage, but certainly there are committee remunerations arranging for that and a number of other roles. So typically, if there's in most municipalities I've worked in, if there's one planner, then that's that role is normally filled by that planner. But in this case, the role has been fulfilled by Mary and quite well. So it is our recommendation, the staff recommendation, that that Mary Remick be appointed the Secretary Treasurer of the Planning Advisory Committee.
Thanks, Carl. You want a motion for that, Carl?
Yes, we'll need a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yvonne,
I'll move the motion.
seconder? Stephen Robinson, all in favor? Carried. Carrying on, I need a motion for the approval of the agenda. Moved by Steve, seconder. Seconded by Stephen McGuire. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes. Do I have a motion for the adoption of minutes? Moved by Stephen. Do I have a seconder? Stephen. All in favor? Carried. Oh, there is none. Sorry. I'm not reading far enough ahead. Any disclosure of monetary interest? Okay, we'll now move into the public meeting. The public meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee. Applicants, agents, and members of the public logged in to participate in the public meeting are asked to please keep their microphones on mute. Cameras off until called on by the chair. If you wish to speak to an application and have not signed in with the recording secretary, please speak now. The purpose of this public meeting is to consider consent application B22-06 for 33-35 Russell Street West. The application purposes to divide the property along the dividing wall of an existing semi-detached building on the subject property. This meeting is your opportunity to provide feedback on this application. The Planning Advisory Committee welcomes and encourages any questions and comments you may have, as the Planning Act rules suggest the public's ability to voice objections later in the process may be limited. The committee is approval authority of the consent applications. The committee will review and consider all feedback regarding the proposal of the inform their decision on the application. I will now pass the meeting over to Planner 1 Richard Grant to present report PAC-23-01 for application B22-06. Following this presentation, I will call on public participants one at a time to offer feedback, comments, and questions regarding the proposal. The applicant will also be given an opportunity to address any concerns of the public. Richard?
Thank you, John Wellness. Hello, everyone. This is the consent application for B22-06, 33 and 35 Russell Street West. Next slide, please. So this map shows us the subject property, which is 33 and 35 Russell Street West. The darkened portion is the retained lands, 33 Russell Street West, and the shaded green portion is 33 Russell Street West. Next slide, please. The intent for the application is to divide this property that is 668 meters. That has a semi-detached dwelling to create 2 new residential lots. The application consent would formally recognize that division of the lots is separated by the dividing line between the 2 units. Next slide, please. This site sketch provided shows shows red line, which is the dividing line for the 2 properties. On one side you have 33 and on one side you have 35. The yellow cross-hatched squares represent the sheds that are on the property. And the perforated yellow line represents the house itself that sits on the property. Next slide, please. Merged in 1994 when two properties had the same owner, Farhad Khan and Razul Haq, seek to sever the property at 33 and 35 Russell Street West for the purpose of creating two new residential lots. Each unit has its own property identification number and municipal rule number. The two units share sanitary services, but each have their own water services. Next slide, please. So this is a site visit photo of the property in question. And it is a two-story semi-detached house with a one-story addition at the back and sheds in the back of the property. The subject property is situated within a residential neighborhood that consists of low to medium high density homes with a generous front yard setbacks. Next slide, please. The purpose of public meetings is to involve the community in considering a change in the configuration of properties in question. This is the opportunity for the community and the neighbors to negotiate, to ask questions, and provide feedback. Proponents are also given a chance to respond to questions about the application. Next slide, please. Public and agency feedback is a critical part of this process. Concerning agency feedback, we will have feedback from the Public Works Department. No public feedback was given at this time. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The Department of Public Works advises the applicant to service each lot with its own water and sanitary lateral services. This requires determining the exact location of the services with respect to the property line. Whichever side the existing services favor, they will have to install water and sanitary services on the opposite sides so that the opposite side to the water main and sanitary lateral services. Next slide, please. Here are some of the town's planning policies that guided the planning, evaluation, and review of this application. Next slide, please. With this application, the seventh lot will create two new residential lots that function as permitted uses in residential zones. The size of the lot are still consistent with the built form of the neighborhood, and the two lots are now two additional real estate assets. Next slide, please. Planning staff are of the view that a severance to divide the lot at 33 and 35 Russell Street West into two new parcels broadly meets the intent of the planning provincial policy statement in 2020 and the town's official plan, and can be given favorable consideration by the committee. Next slide, please. Here are the conditions for the consent application if permitted by the if permitted by the PAC. I would like to note that item 6 of the consent application is included to ensure that new lot lines do not cut across accessory structures. That is everything, Mary. Thanks. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no members of the public. I'll now move on to Farhad, who's one of the owners. Would you like to speak?
Hello, everyone.
Would you like to speak to your application?
Well, I have nothing to add. I think, it's a reasonable request. So I'm really just attending this meeting to see, what the committee, what decision it comes to, and if there's any objections.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll now ask the committee members, if they have any comments or questions regarding Jacqueline?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just have a question in regards to the sewer, that being a condition of the application. When does that happen? Does that happen? Is there a time frame it happens afterwards? Does it need to happen before? What if there's a window of time? I don't know if Richard maybe can answer that.
From what I understand, I think the applicant has a window, but I think it's within 2 years of the consent. But I could be wrong, but I believe that's what it is.
Thanks, Richard. Stephen,
Just for clarification, did I read that correctly that at one time this was 2 separate lots until the
Yes.
property was purchased? Well, then
That's right.
I wouldn't have any problem supporting it.
Yes. So what happens actually is that because the two properties owned by the same person, they automatically emerged.
merged. Anyone else have any questions? Jay,
No question, just a comment that I support staff's recommendation. And I don't know what the owner's plan is, but if it's to sell one half of it, then that would provide someone the opportunity to enter the housing market. So that's a good thing.
thanks, Jay. Well, I had a question. My question was similar to Jacqueline's with regards to the sewer connection. Is the water, they've got separate water connections.
Right.
Yes.
Are they going to land on each other's lot or?
In terms
Yeah,
of,
so, sorry, Richard, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So they are the water supply lines are in each separate lot and comes in separately into the separate homes.
Into each
It's-
unit?
Yes, with separate meters.
Okay, all right. But like the water line wouldn't cross over on the one lot or the other. They're both, they're located with each property.
Yes, within each lot, so it does not get into the other lot.
Yeah, okay. Except for the sewer.
Yes, it has a common drain.
Okay,
So everything is separate. It's just at the drain, the 4-inch pipe that goes into the municipal sewer. It's a common line.
okay. But that'll be changed.
That is the plan.
Yeah, okay. Any other, Carl?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, just to confirm, that would be a condition of consent, and the applicant would be required to work that out with Public Works as one of the things that needs to be completed within 2 years. This is it's one of those files where unfortunately the applicant has discovered that the property was merged. It does happen from time to time, and the province has actually made changes to the Planning Act where if sometimes what owners will do is if they own adjacent properties, one owner will have one name on it, and then the owner and spouse would have a name on the other property, just to make sure that they don't accidentally go together. And however, if one of the partners dies and then it results in merged ownership based on that, the Planning Act has been changed so that circumstance would not automatically result in the merger. But that was one of the first conversations that Richard had with Mr. Khan, just to ensure that there wasn't any sort of legal quirk, I guess, that would result in any other way. But the advice was given that this action was needed to remerge or redivide the properties, even though they already have a separate assessment roll numbers. Just based on that, I know the committee has seen a couple similar applications to this over the last few years. I hope that clarifies.
Thanks, Carl. Any other questions or? committee is tasked with making a decision for the consent application. If the committee is ready to do so, I will now entertain a motion. Moved by Yvonne. Second by Stephen McGuire. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for attending and participating in the public meeting for application B22-06. Participants that have not signed in and require further notice regarding the application are asked to please reach out to the planning clerk, Mary Remig, by phone at the town hall. Appeal rights are prescribed by the Planning Act, will be outlined on the notice of decision. If you have any questions on this application or the process, I invite you to get in touch with our planning staff. This concludes the meeting, the public meeting portion of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. We will now move into the next item on our agenda. Item number 9, priority issues. Number 1, regular committee meeting schedule. Jay,
Yeah, I'm fine with Thursdays, but I'm fine if committee members want to change the day, just don't do Monday because Councillor Robbins and I are busy on Mondays. Any other day.
okay.
Friday's probably not the best either.
Jacqueline,
Yeah, I like Thursdays as well.
Thursday's good for me too. Stephen,
I'm good on Thursdays as well.
Stephen McGuire,
Yeah, Thursday works well.
Yvonne,
Thursdays is great.
all right. You got that, Mary?
Actually, Mr. Chair, sorry, would the committee like to continue meeting on the second Thursday of each month, or would they prefer to change that?
The second is fine with me. What about,
Perfect, we'll continue with the
Good.
second Thursday of each month then.
all right. Item number
No, there's
2,
a question.
Mr.
Yvonne
Chair,
has a question.
I think Yvonne had something to say.
Yvonne?
I just wondered, when we have to give recommendations to council, how does the second Thursday align with the council agendas? They're good?
Carl, Mary,
So for you, Mr. Chair, typically committee and council meet on alternating weeks. So there'd be 2 committee meetings, 2 committee of the whole meetings, 2 council meetings. So committee of the whole, so planning advisory committee recommendations are typically made to the committee of the whole, sort of bundled within a broader staff recommendation on either a zoning application or some sort of other exercise. So in the past, we have, if there is something very time sensitive, we have scheduled special meetings of committee of the whole to make sure that things move along, or scheduled special planning advisory committee meetings to, if we need to meet a certain deadline. That's something that we always take up with the chair beforehand. But in practice, the scheduling has not been a significant issue in terms of moving things through. Oftentimes, following a public meeting, there is still work and other things that need to happen on a file before it's ready to report to council. Especially now with the changes to Bill 23, given by Bill 23, and some of the other instruments as they relate to site plan approval, that's now dealt with directly by staff. So in our experience, it hasn't been a significant impediment, but in the event that it becomes one, then we certainly work with the clerk's office and the committee chair on a case-by-case basis to make sure that scheduling does not become a major issue.
Thank you.
thanks, Carl. Item number 2, advisory and property standards role, orientation, scheduling. Carl,
I think the one question that that staff have for the committee is if you'd like to do that orientation similar to this half an hour before the next meeting, or if the committee would like to hold a special meeting sometime in the next few weeks just to address this. And just for the committee's interest, there will be your next agenda will be heavier than this one. We have at least a couple of minor variance applications and 1 or 2 site plan applications that will be on the committee's mandate. So it is certainly our recommendation that the advisory role be addressed before that meeting, but we'll look for the committee's direction in terms of do we do it like this or do we schedule a special?
Jay?
Yeah, this is a new portfolio for this committee, the property standards, and previously there was a separate property standards committee in Smiths Falls, which actually in all my years never met, and suddenly they did meet, and you may or may not be familiar with the issue, but the result of that was that council decided to revise the property standards bylaw, and that's in progress now. So if we're going to discuss property standards, and Carl, I'll just look to you, but I would suggest that we have a meeting to bring everyone up to speed, and perhaps because I sat through the presentations, and that was prior to the election, from the consultants that are writing the draft bylaw. And it would be helpful, I think, for us to hear that. And then, I think we'd have a more informed opinion, because I would assume that this committee is going to have to bring some sort of recommendation to council, because we are effectively the property standards committee now. It's been folded into this committee. So I don't know what you think about that, Carl.
Carl?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Councillor Brennan, that is correct. This is, I think, your role isn't just bringing a recommendation to council, but actually sort of making a decision on an appeal that's made to a property standards order. So the committee can uphold an order, reject an order, or any number of a number of different options. And of course, it goes without saying that when dealing with an issue like that, it is likely going to be highly sensitive, and the committee, of course, is going to want to make sure that they have all the information, all the consideration, and of course, considering everything that's through there. So the plan that that Mary and I had envisioned is that we would give a high-level overview of the property standards role within the context of our bylaw and the legislation, in addition to also going over the advisory role through zoning amendments and site plan applications. One option we could offer the committee is, if you wanted to deal with property standards either separately or perhaps at a later date, and have us invite the consultants who prepared the bylaw to orient the committee specifically on that item, we'll take the committee's direction on that.
Jay?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just through you, maybe I'm mistaken. Is the new property standards bylaw, does that flow through this committee, or we just council approves or disapproves of whatever the bylaw is and then go from there? So does this committee have any advisory role in terms of what the bylaw looks like? I guess my question.
Carl?
So the draft bylaw was circulated to the committee a little while ago, and certainly any feedback that the committee members have on that would be welcome to be provided to the clerk's office. Director Costello is spearheading the rewrite of the property standards bylaw. But once the new bylaw is approved by council, then this committee's role becomes the appeal body. So in the event that there is an appeal, it may never happen, we may never see an appeal, but in the event that there is an appeal to a property standards order, then that's where this committee's role on an ongoing basis will be the appeal body for that. It won't be in terms of actually drafting the bylaw. The committee is simply the committee is an advisory body that provides comments, just like a number of other departments and anyone else. But if there are any additional comments on the property standards bylaw, we'd certainly invite feedback to be provided to staff soon.
Yeah, just one more thing. I think then if we have a role to advise council on what the draft bylaw is going to look like, then I think it's helpful to have the consultant come and talk to us and give that presentation, because it's like I said, this committee had never met before this particular issue come up. So I think it'd be helpful for everybody to listen to those guys.
Thanks, Jay. Jacqueline?
Yeah, I agree with Jay. I was reading through the paperwork, and it's a little bit difficult to give an opinion on a committee I don't really know anything about, or part of our new committee that I've never even seen function before. So, reading through it, I don't know. I didn't know what to say. So certainly hearing about it, learning about it, I think in a separate meeting rather than right before we jump into a public meeting would be best. So like something in 2 weeks or something. I'm fine if it's combined with the Committee of Adjustments and the other, or if you feel like it's too much with having the consultants, I'm fine having it in 2 meetings, but I think it should be separate from our public meeting.
Yeah, I think it'd be too much to cram into one session. Stephen?
I agree with that totally, because just from my point of view, I think it's going to take longer than a half an hour before the meeting to get that stuff in, like sink through my thick skull. So I'd be in favor of having a separate meeting.
Anyone else? Yeah, well, I think we should schedule a second meeting then. Would you set Jacqueline, did you have something?
Do we need to motion a date, or does Carl need to get back to us with what's available from the consultants?
Yeah. Okay. You want a motion, Carl?
Yes, please. And just to confirm the committee's direction, I think what we will reach out to the consultants to find out when they're ready, and we'll ask them not just to review the mandate of the appeals body, but also sort of introduce the bylaw in greater detail, to give the committee more of an opportunity for direct engagement and question and answer with the consultants. And I think with that in mind, that can certainly we can schedule a meeting just specifically for that. We can aim for, say, a couple of weeks from now. I don't want to pin a date on anybody at this point, but would it be helpful to, not next week, but the following week, to look sort of midweek, 5 o'clock range? Would that work for everybody?
Yeah, works for me.
Okay. And then we'll look for them to both introduce the bylaw and any feedback, and engage with the committee on feedback with respect to the bylaw as a whole, and also detail the committee's new role as the appeal body. So address both of those issues, just to confirm.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll reach out to Dylan Consultants in the clerk's office, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Carl. So can I have a motion? Moved by Yvonne, seconded by Jay. All in favor? Carried. Item number 10, project updates. We have none. Do we have a date for our next meeting that you had mentioned there, Carl?
The next meeting date, Mr. Chair, is February 9th. So that's the second Thursday in February.
Okay. Our next meeting then is February 9th. Is that a public meeting, Mary?
It will be a public meeting, yes, so we will be live at 5.
We'll be meeting at 5. Thank you. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Moved by Jacqueline. Good night, everyone.
Thanks all.